What's going on, everyone? It's your boy Savvy. Welcome back to the Savvy Show. And before everything else, I hope you guys are all having a great weekend. Your boy right now, it's like almost 2 in the morning, but got some time and I want to have some fun with the family. So I hope you guys are all having a good time wherever you guys are at right now in the world. Morning, night, evening, who cares? We're all going to tune in and have a blast. And today's episode is from none other than Dr. Bob. You already know the vibes, guys. You know the vibe on the channel. And this one looks pretty spicy, man. This one is SCP-526 Valhalla Gate. So hopefully we get some Thor, Odin-esque SCPs. I don't know what to expect, but hopefully has something to do with like Northern mythology. Like just a small amount because, I love mythology and, Northern mythology is really cool personally for me. I love Vikings and everything like that, so I'm excited to see what this is all about. So with that all out the way, if you guys do enjoy the content, like always, please smash that like button. Let's at least get 120 likes on this one, guys. Let's at least get it. Come on. We're too strong right now. We're pushing almost close to 10K subs on the channel, which is phenomenal. I love the support that you guys have been giving me since I started a year and a few months ago. Man, you guys are awesome. It's been a blast and I want to keep it going, so feel free to smash that like button, smash out oblivion, and also smash that sub button. Join the family, guys. If you're not already part of it, I make content like this all the time, so if you do enjoy SCP content and you enjoy my reactions, this is the best place to be to get your fix of SCP heat. So with that all out the way, without any further ado, let's get this show started. Alrighty, SCP-526 Valhalla Gate. Let's get it.
It's October 31st, 2021, and anyone who's anyone in the upper crust of society knows that there's really only one place to celebrate Halloween if you want to stay relevant. A certain Norwegian billionaire's yearly costume ball. Invitations are highly exclusive, and if you have to ask where you can get one, you're definitely not on the list. Those lucky, beautiful, famous, or just plain rich enough to be invited receive the notice a year in advance, in an increasingly elaborate fashion each time.
I see the tits, but
Rumor has it that one year the billionaire specially trained a flock of purebred carrier pigeons to deliver the invites, printed on scrolls recovered from the ruins of the Library of Alexandria.
That reminds me of some like Great Gatsby vibes, bro. That is actually sick.
But that's just a rumor, of course. This year's invitations arrived in the form of a luxury sports car with a simple, gold-embossed card hidden in the glove compartment that read, "Lucky You." It then provided information on this year's theme, medieval fantasy. The dress code would be strict, and failure to comply would result in being barred from entering the event. It also included a vital piece of carefully guarded information, the location of the party. The lavish event is held in the billionaire's castle, nestled in the remote countryside of Norway, which he had built a decade ago specifically for this one night a year.
Rainbow pool? Yo, this is definitely Great Gatsby vibes. What the hell is going on?
For the other 364 days, it sits vacant, except for a full staff to keep it in prime condition, of course. As a group of first-time partygoers pull up the long, winding driveway to the castle's gates, their limo is stopped by a guard. "Your driver will need to let you out here," he explains. "Can't have someone who isn't on the list coming up to the residence," your host insists.
Wow.
And so the group, 2 men and 2 women, climbs out of the car, and they all make their way up the drive on foot.
Valhalla party.
They didn't prepare for the trek, and by the time they reach the castle gates, the ladies are sweating into their exquisite handmade gowns, and one of the gentlemen has torn a small hole in his tights.
Uh-oh.
Nevertheless, they have arrived at what promises to be a truly grand occasion. Once the gates creak open and grant them admission, they quickly forget the discomfort of the long walk. Reports of the event have...
That was a long walk. The car to the gate. Yo, you guys don't need to go to this part. You guys need to get on a treadmill, bro. That was a long walk. Come on. Come on now.
Not, in fact, been greatly exaggerated. It is every inch as impressive as they could have imagined it would be. A lush golden carpet rolls out from the doors into the ballroom, and a herald clad in period attire blows a horn to signal their arrival. He announces their names to the room, where beautiful people are already dancing and frolicking to their heart's content.
Well, that's cool.
There are rows and rows of delicious-looking food, including roasted pigs, fresh fruit, and cakes. There are fountains filled with the finest champagne.
Oh my
God! A full
God.
orchestra provides live music that fills the enormous halls. Above it all, the host himself sits, dressed in regal robes and a crown positively dripping with jewels. It is the most indulgent, decadent, glorious event any of them have ever been a part of. There are no clocks inside the party castle, and no other way to note the passage of time while inside. This is entirely deliberate, and an event there ends only when the guests have all grown too weary to continue the merriment. It is for this reason that the 4 newcomers do not notice how late it has grown, or the fact that one day has already bled into the next outside the castle. By the time they stumble back outside, filled with cake, champagne, and fresh gossip they can't wait to repeat, it is nearly dawn. They walk back down the path that led them to the castle, their steps a little heavier with exhaustion and the aforementioned champagne, and notice that there are rows of limousines and other cars waiting where they were dropped off. "Excuse me," one of the women calls out to a guard. "Where's our limo?" "Where did you tell him to wait?" the guard responds. At this, the woman looks at her companions, who all shrug. None of them were aware of this practice, and they sent the driver home when they left the car. "We didn't," she explains. The guard stares at her blankly for a moment, then bursts out laughing. "Well then," he says, "you'll just have to walk." Surely there's a contingency plan in place, right? Their wealthy host can't expect his guests to walk home if they didn't think to plan ahead and tell their driver to wait all night.
What the hell?
The group waits for the punchline, revealed that there is a driver on staff ready to give them a ride or someone who can call them a cab.
He's for real.
It never comes. Not only that, but none of their cell phones have a signal.
Dang.
They can't call the driver to come back, even if he wasn't likely to be dead asleep at this hour. The guard is right. They will have to walk, at least until they have enough of a signal to call for a taxi. So, with no other option in sight, the disillusioned partygoers begin the long journey back to civilization.
I would have walked back in, grabbed a bed, and slept in the morning until I got a signal. And when everyone's up to, give me a ride. Because that's a freaking mansion. I'm sure they have a room for us. Or for them at least, not me. But, come on. I would just turn back. It's too dangerous. Because who knows where they're at right now. They don't. They definitely don't. This is a random party, a random address.
Light is beginning to trickle back onto the landscape, allowing them to at least see where they are going, but it is still mostly dark as they make their way along the road. "Are we safe out here?" one of the men asks. "From what, muggers?" the other replies. "There could be bears out here," one of the women remarks.
Could be anything.
"No," the other woman insists. "The bears are all hibernating this time of year, aren't they?"
How would you know specifically? You don't even know where you're at. Come on, man.
They all collectively shiver at the thought of encountering a bear or anything else out on this lonely road, with nowhere to hide and no way to defend themselves. Best not to dwell too long on that thought, or they might find themselves paralyzed with fear. They still have who knows how many steps left to go before they can relax. They walk together in silence for a long time, listening for the sound of any dangerous criminals or bears creeping up behind them, but nothing comes. As they slowly progress, the sun begins to emerge on the horizon, flooding the landscape with warm light and chasing away the fear of the dark.
That was fast.
"Look," one of the ladies finally breaks the silence. "Up there." She points, directing her friend's attention to a hill up ahead.
The people
There, they can make out the silhouettes of men on horseback, wearing suits of medieval armor. They're dressed as knights, like something out of a King Arthur story. "They must have come from the party." The others nod, agreeing. "Maybe we could ask for a ride?" one of the men suggests. "Or to borrow a horse," the other chimes in. In agreement, the 4 approach the knights in shining armor, waving their arms as they go. "Halt! Who goes there?" shouts one of the knights. "Oh, there's no need for that," the other woman laughs. "We came from the same place." "Art thou friend or foe?" the knight asks. He does not remove his helmet. His hand rests on the hilt of his sword. Thinking it all must be some kind of joke, the group of partiers continues up the hill.
I guess they're still drunk.
To action, the knight draws his sword, brandishing it threateningly.
Say friend.
This is enough to stop the group in their tracks. "Is he serious?" mutters one woman to the other. "I can't tell," she replies. "That sword looks pretty real, though." Behind them, they hear the clip-clop of hooves and turn to see 2 other knights sitting atop massive black horses, brandishing weapons. "I think we should go," she yells to her friends, gathering her skirts and running back down the hill. But the rest of the group don't seem so willing to turn back. "You want to play a game? Then let's play," says one of the men as he draws his own sword, a perfect replica of one wielded by a character in his favorite fantasy television series, and tries to wave it back at the knight, but he promptly drops it on the grass. It's much heavier than he thought it would be. "Leave this place now, or face your death," a voice bellows from above
Follow
him.
your friend.
"Now wait just a minute. Who do you think you're talking to?" the man says as he bends down to pick his sword up again. But before he can finish, there's a flash of glimmering steel in the sunlight, followed by a spray of dark red liquid that hits the rest of the partygoers. They watch in silent horror as the man's head rolls off his shoulders before looking back at the man on horseback. This isn't a game at all. The blood-stained partygoers turn and run from these frightening strangers on horseback, but they can hear the thunderous hooves following them, the clank of the metal armor. The woman who first began to run looks back over her shoulder and can't believe what she sees.
She should be already gone.
As the mounted knights chase their fleeing foes, cutting them down in their retreat. All she can
They're
do is
running
run and hope that they're too distracted with their current quarry to come after her.
But they're leaving, though. You're still going to chop them down. You just told them to leave. And then when they decide to listen to you, you're still going to chop them down? Come on, man.
She doesn't know how long she runs before the sound of the massacre starts to fade out. But eventually, it does. Unable to run any longer, she collapses in the grass,
She was smart.
frightened and confused by all that has happened. But with a scream, she jumps to her feet once again as she hears footsteps behind her. "You can't sleep here," says a man with a harsh, barking voice. "This is a restricted area."
SCP?
Before her stands the second group of armed men she's seen that day. This time, they're dressed in modern military attire. The Norwegian army? She can't be sure. The man doesn't have an accent. She starts to plead with the man, but he abruptly cuts her off. "What year is it?" he asks, his expression serious. She answers, confused, giving him the current year. He relaxes. "This area is closed to the public. It's not safe for you to be here. Let me escort you out of the perimeter," he offers. She tries to tell him
Probably
what she's
SCP.
seen. The strange men on horseback, her friends being slaughtered before her eyes. When the man asks how she got there, she lets the whole story come pouring out. The billionaire, the invitation, the party. In her frantic state, she doesn't notice one of the guards, who radios to someone that it looks like he's done it again. The man questioning her changes his tone.
The king?
He doesn't seem at all concerned about a murderous group of medieval knights in the woods. "Sounds like you had a bit too much to drink," he tells her before putting a comforting arm around her shoulders. And she doesn't even notice the syringe until she feels a prick on her upper arm before losing consciousness.
Oh.
The woman would be returned home and have no memories of the events that she witnessed.
At least she
Never
survived.
remember how much danger she was in when she had a brush with SCP-526. SCP-526, also known as the Valhalla Gate, is located on a hill in Norway. The SCP Foundation has hidden information on the gate's exact whereabouts, no doubt to stop curious civilians from wandering into danger or filming short viral videos.
TikTok.
But if you find yourself in the Norwegian countryside, it can still easily be identified. Simply look for a ring of 9 stones, each standing at about 2 meters tall, placed in a 10-meter radius at the top of the hill. If you're not certain whether you're in the right place, or if you just happened upon another mysterious stone circle, look for the runes inscribed on the inward surface of each one. If the runes are there, you're in the right place. Or the wrong place, depending on who you ask. Every day at sunrise, give or take about 15 minutes, the gate will open and release a group of warriors from any point in history, fully armed and outfitted for battle.
Any
These
point?
can range from a small group of archers to 300 Spartans to groups of highly trained special operatives.
What?
And every member of the temporarily displaced group will be from the same period in history.
They got Spartans? Yo, so this is not even like Valhalla shit. Like, this is anything. Any military unit. Like, yo.
As if they all ran through some sort of rift at the same time. Though these resulting manifestations rarely harm anyone, staying in place 92% of the time after they first appear on the hilltop, the remaining 8% lead to scenarios which can truly be a bloodbath. After all, to an army lost in the fog of war, emerging in a strange land in an unfamiliar time, anyone can look like an enemy. No matter how they behave on their initial appearance, those who cross through SCP-526 will attempt to attack anyone who approaches the anomaly. They will remain in the area until sunset, at which time they disappear, presumably returning back to wherever and whenever they originated. The SCP Foundation first discovered SCP-526 after a group of backpackers were hospitalized in the area. They claimed to have been walking through the hills when suddenly they were swarmed by, quote, a bunch of Vikings with axes. Naturally, this drew the attention of Foundation field agents, who soon found the mystical stone circle responsible for the attack. The survivors were given amnestics, and a cover story circulated blaming the claims of Vikings on recreational hallucinogens. Since this first incident, notable encounters between the Foundation and the soldiers traveling through the temporal gate have been few and far between, but there have been a few that were designated significant enough to be recorded in the official archives.
Oh, yeah,
4,
Dr. Bob?
to be exact. In the 1990s, a member of the Foundation containment team spotted 40 figures making their way down the hill in the dim dawn light. They were holding longbows and swords, weapons at the ready as they made their descent. One member of the team, who it should be noted was on his very first day of containment duty, made the mistake of calling out to the strangers. "Gentlemen, please lower your weapons," he called. His request, however polite it may have been, was answered with an arrow to the shoulder.
Damn.
Thankfully, the rest of the team was able to swoop in and settle things
Lucky
before the
it wasn't the
situation
head.
could progress any further. The injured personnel was given prompt medical attention and reassigned to a desk job, where he was much less likely to encounter flying projectiles of any kind.
Damn.
A few years later,
Size
the team of
paper
Foundation
balls.
operatives placed at SCP-526 had started to grow complacent. There had not been a violent incident in ages, just a series of very confused people appearing at sunrise and milling around until they vanished at sunset. It seemed that most of the subjects passing through the temporal rift were not as bloodthirsty as one might expect.
So I guess these people that go through the rift don't know they're actually going to a different time from wherever they were from. Interesting. So I guess it's just like a portal that they just get transported to.
Then, one operative was startled out of a daydream by the thunk of a stone axe hitting a tree near his head. He and the rest of his team looked up to see a group of 30 men clad in animal skins pouring down the hillside, rushing right for them. In their fists, they held
Cavemen?
crude weapons carved from stone, their wild eyes, untamed beards, and blood-stained clothing becoming clearer as they grew closer.
Shoot them.
Fortunately for the SCP Foundation, these cavemen had brought clubs to a
Kill 'em.
semi-automatic rifle fight.
Too easy.
They opened fire, and within minutes, not a single hide-clad man was left standing.
Easy claps.
It was a bit awkward, looking at their fallen bodies for the rest of the day, but the team saw no point in moving them if they were just going to disappear that night anyway.
Oh.
One task force member spent the rest of the day looking at his hands, paranoid he may have shot one of his ancient ancestors and erased himself from the timeline in a back-to-the-future-like fashion.
Bruh.
This was, thankfully, not the case. Several more years passed, and the century turned to usher in the new millennia. In the early 2000s, a platoon of 20 Russian soldiers, later identified when a Foundation officer attempted to translate several curses yelled at him by one of the men, materialized, wearing World War II uniforms and carrying rifles consistent with that time period.
Oh.
Most of them did not move from the hill, staying in a defensive position, but a few got a bit too bold and opened fire on the Foundation operatives.
Interesting.
The fire was returned in kind, and 2 men were killed, but the rest were left unharmed for the remainder of the day.
They
The
just
final
stayed?
incident on record is particularly notable because, in this case, the soldiers that appeared did not belong to a particular country's military, nor were they from the distant past. There were 30 men and women, dressed in an uncomfortably recognizable uniform.
SCP.
These were the members of a lost SCP Foundation mobile task force, all killed in action during a field mission several years prior.
Damn.
Wanting to avoid friendly fire, the operatives placed at the site attempted to speak to these MTF members, but they did not respond. Instead, they attacked and would not relent until air support arrived in the form of a Foundation AC-130 gunship, Thor's Hammer, leaving 3 dead and 11 wounded when the smoke finally
Thor's
cleared.
hammer.
This
How convenient.
raised some difficult questions about the nature
Whoops.
of
Let me rewind
SCP-526,
this.
and until air support arrived in the form of a Foundation AC-130
Freaking
gunship, Thor's Hammer, leaving 3 dead and 11 wounded when the smoke finally cleared. This last encounter raised some difficult questions about the nature of SCP-526 and the mental state of those who passed through it. They seemed unable to recognize their own peers, unable to hear what they were saying. Their instinct to defend SCP-526 from any perceived invaders overrode whatever familiarity or loyalty they might ordinarily have for other Foundation operatives.
I mean, to be honest, they probably don't even know who they are. They're lost souls within this SCP. How would they figure out? I mean, they look alike, but I'm sure they're under some brainwashing with the SCP that they're a part of now. Dang, that's crazy. I really thought it was just going to be like Vikings, despite any military base in the past that died, supposedly.
It was a tragic, disquieting affair with no clear answers in sight. The SCP Foundation is, of course, no stranger to terminating its own, but the individual officers present for this incident reported a high rate of post-traumatic stress disorder, and several requested to be given amnestics in order to put a stop to recurring nightmares. The Foundation will not be able to learn more unless more of their own fallen soldiers pass through the gate. Even if they do, it is impossible to say whether they will be able to ask any questions or engage in a dialogue, or whether they will have to gun them down in another round of kill or be killed. Because there is no way to know what each new sunrise at SCP-526 will bring, the SCP Foundation has classified the anomaly as Euclid. As there is no way to move SCP-526 to any official Foundation site, the 15-kilometer radius around the anomaly has been converted into Armed Containment Area 31. The
Smart.
cover story for this area is a military weapon testing site, and there is a no-fly zone in effect there. A team of qualified field agents is placed on site in order to observe and neutralize any subjects that emerge from SCP-526. Because all is fair in war and, well, war, the agents placed there are permitted to use deadly force if their lives are threatened or the containment is jeopardized. 30 minutes before the sun comes up, the containment teams are placed on full alert and will keep their eyes on SCP-526 until the sun has set and all potential threats have disappeared. If a given day's apparitions are too aggressive or too numerous for the teams on the ground to contain, Mobile Task Force Sigma-9, or Valkyries, may assist via airstrike. Since the Foundation has set up its perimeter around SCP-526, no civilians have been harmed, though the same can't be said for Foundation personnel or the revolving door of strange warriors emerging on the hill. The protocol has been considered successful. I haven't yet been out to see the gate in person myself. I tend to be more of a pacifist, but if I ever do, I'll make sure to bring a shield, a bulletproof vest, and perhaps a full suit of armor. Why not? The best offense is a good defense, I always say. I hope you enjoyed this anomaly, which was chosen by research members on the Dr. Bob Squad. If you want to assist in choosing future anomalies to be analyzed, you too can join the Dr. Bob Squad by going to patreon.com/drbob. Now go and watch another entry from the files of Dr. Bob, like SCP-167, Infinite Labyrinth, for another anomalous, bizarre location. And make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single anomaly as we delve further and further into the SCP Foundation's classified archives.
I think it was only that one and another one. What was it called? It's like something Cradle. Oh no. Let me know what you guys think about me reacting to this one, the Infinite Labyrinth, or the Cradle one. The one with the bull on the thumbnail. Both of them seem kind of, dope, but nothing like really like, gravitated me to like, jump to react to. So yeah, just let me know which one's better, and then I'll react to that one first before the other one. But yeah, this was cool. This was cool. Way more than I thought it would be. I just thought it would be like, Vikings and stuff, but this is more than that. I'm surprised it's called Valhalla Gate. It should be called something else, honestly, with the way the SCP is. But that's neither here nor there. I thought it was awesome. And if you guys did enjoy the reaction, please let me know by smashing that like button. It really helps the channel grow. It takes less than a second, guys, but it goes a long way. I am telling you guys, it really does. So it will be much appreciated, guys. And also smash the sub button if you're not already part of the family. And then hit that bell so you stay plugged for each and every upload. And now, unfortunately, that concludes today's episode. However, I'll catch you guys on the next one.